We are ready to invest, as the president also mentioned, $70 billion in the next few years from Pfizer in manufacturing and research in America alone. I really think this is an historical moment because also I can put that behind us and focus on the things that I want to spend my time, cancer treatments, to bring better obesity medicines, to bring better vaccines, to bring things that people value. And thank you for allowing us to do that. I want to thank Secretary Kennedy. I want to thank Secretary Latnik. Your leadership helped us to pull that together. You are the mastermind of everything, and without the brilliant way that you designed the whole thing, we wouldn't be able to make it happen. But you were even more brilliant because you had someone in your team that he was the driving force behind everything. And I don't have words to thank you for your integrity. And it is what you have said. We created trust from day one. And that was the most important thing that allowed us to be able to pull very difficult negotiations. Of course, also I want to thank the US trade representative, who is also heavily engaged, and he's probably the first trade representative that I have seen that cares about our industry and cares to do something about unfair situations out there, but more than anyone else. Mr. President, I want to thank you, for your leadership and frankly for your friendship. Thank you.
Albert, thank you very much. Great job. Great job.
Welcome to the Dan the Messenger podcast broadcast, brought to you by Hope for Humanity 2020 and Hope House Orlando. What you just watched last week came out, and of course a bunch of other things have happened since, but for those of us that are on the front lines of the MAHA movement, those who have been literally working on the front lines of this and seeing the injured from the poison that has been pushed from companies like Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J, and it's been sick and tired of seeing our friends injured and die from this, as well as the amount of the injuries and the over 200 known signs and symptoms of the adverse reactions that were in Pfizer's own files. This pissed us off to no end. This has really fired us up to the point where I'm Candace level mad. I'm Candace Owens mad on what in the hell they are doing to our people. And as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus Christ, I go to myself, our people are not for genocide. And tonight I want to bring on a good friend, a sister on the front lines, Nurse Nicole. Nurse Nicole is part of Nurses Out Loud. They have been amazing in advocating for the injured. They've been amazing in advocating for alternative integrative health. They've been amazing in exposing all the insane things that they are seeing on the front lines, just like myself. And thank you for coming on tonight. Nurse Nicole, I love my frontline lionesses. You know, we share a lot of that, the Christian fortitude, and we also like to keep inspiring followers of Jesus Christ to not give up faith in what we're dealing with. Now, you did a video right before I did mine. I didn't know it until I watched, because you normally do short videos. You don't do long videos. But apparently that day, same thing like me, you said enough, and you started sharing what your true thoughts were. And so when you watched that video, Nicole, what was your initial response to this?
Well, I think like many people, my initial response was shock, confusion. I wasn't quite sure why we were seeing the leader of Pfizer in the same room with our president, you know, Secretary Robert F.K. Jr. and Dr. Oz discussing $70 billion plus worth of money going into a plan over the next few years that was to discuss more pharmaceuticals, when we have an administration that's been discussing Make America Healthy Again and trying to steer away from those things. So it was just the initial shock and disappointment that this was something that was even happening to begin with, and where we are going from here when none of this screams making America healthy again.
Sorry, here I'm still working with this. So I'm going to bring another video on here in a few, because it's going to show why we get more outraged, because you work with Children's Health Defense.
Yes,
You just actually had an event that you were a part of 2 weeks ago
Yes.
in the villages with Makis and Dr.
Doc-
Jivjets.
Dr. Trozzi, Dr. Speaker, Dr. Villa, Dr. Latipo.
Yeah, our Surgeon General, and it was packed, from what I understand, to the gills with
Yes.
people that I'm sure are either injured or have friends that are injured or have lost loved ones, and are trying to find answers.
Correct.
And these events are only going to keep growing because our people are not getting help, the desperate help that they currently need. And this is why we, voices on the front lines, that have either suffered it, that have survived it, that are working with others, are trying to make sense of the senseless. When we have our own Florida General at an event speaking on the adverse reactions that they are seeing in the health system, because he has access to all the Florida health care. He can
Correct.
see what we know on the front lines are actually happening. And so when our own Florida General is speaking out, but then you have the evil empire in the White House, we're going, how is this? We were sold a bag of goods going that we were going to make America healthy again.
Exactly.
Right. And for the conservatives, now we're Christian conservatives. And I've heard you say this in the sense that neither one of us care about what side is doing what. We care about patients.
Correct.
We care about ending the cycle of death and destruction, and we want a solution to these problems.
Amen.
So damn be your politics. Let's get to the nitty-gritty of what MAHA is supposed to be about. And it is going to be a change in sick care to health care, to wellness care, to preventative, in the sense that we don't give you 5 or 6 different pills, because we know the practice. We've seen this enough with patients. You give them one pill, within 60, 90, 6 months, they're usually on 2 pills, right?
Right.
Listen, keep them all taking pills. Well, we love that model. It just keeps us printing the money.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And so if you've been in the healthcare system for more than a hot minute, nurses, first of all, this is what kind of throws me off. So far in the movement, majority of the people that get all the interest is the doctors. Now, if you've been in the hospital before, your doctor comes and you see them for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you see the majority of the time? The nurses.
Right.
They're the ones that have the established relationship with your patient. And you are vital as a patient. Believe me, you better hope you got a good nurse on duty, because if you don't, you're going to see what happened in 2020. Some bad suspects that go, we were just following orders. But you are the ones that are seeing it, just like myself as a practitioner, as a therapist, laser, doing what I'm doing. This doesn't make any sense. The people that are injured need their voices heard. And I know we want to keep doing this, not do this, not do this. But this is why we can't, in good consciousness, stop speaking out on getting help. And you and I worked on Cody's Law last year.
Yes.
Heather Hudson and Cody are absolutely just amazing human beings. And this law that we are working on is a solution, a basic solution, a minimal. I say the bare minimum. Because what happens? Give us a rundown on a typical patient what they deal with chronic illness, cardiac issues, all right, all these signs and symptoms. What happens to them? They can't function, right?
Right. So they essentially have a poor quality of life, right? I mean, one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that some of these vaccine injured don't look like they're injured. They don't look like they're sick. A lot of them carry what we think, or what we like to say, is an invisible illness. It doesn't always, come to the surface. And so a lot of times there's a misconception that they are not that ill, when really, like you said, these are chronic illnesses that start one way and then advance in another, and eventually get to the point where multi-system organ, issues occur, and they become lifelong customers of the medical system and don't have the appropriate resources, the timely resources, or the money that is involved to explore alternative options, which is why when the 70 plus $billion deal was being discussed, a lot of people were like, well, Nicole, there's people that have diseases that could really benefit from pharmaceuticals. And where I'm not discrediting that, where I'm not saying that there aren't situations that pharmaceuticals could potentially be the option for certain individuals. It's not for the majority. And to get up there and say you're going to put all this money out over the next so many years on pharmaceuticals for obesity and cancer and everything else, not addressing the root cause, not bringing to the table potential preventative or alternative ways with interventions or other means to be put in place so that people have options, when you tote saying that you're Make America Healthy Again, is just absolutely ridiculous. And why I did the live, because I'm sitting here thinking I'm a, conservative Christian, very outspoken, but wrong is wrong. We have to call these things out. And they, as in the administration, needs to know that this was not the most appropriate. And if they come out with more information to say that those things are going to be added, I'll eat my words. But they sat up there and shook hands with the devil, if you will, the Pfizer representative, and basically said that this was strictly going to be related to pharmaceuticals. And again, leaves really no room open for making America healthy again, when all you're pushing are pharmaceuticals. That is not necessarily the answer for a lot of individuals, including our vaccine injured. A lot of them do not respond to these pharmaceuticals. They don't respond to these, specific treatments that are out there that are more standardized. They go and try to seek alternatives, but don't that don't end up qualifying for them because they either don't have access or they don't have enough money or it's not covered by insurance, which is something that needs to continue to be talked about within our movement. That you have to identify that there's a problem. You have to recognize that they need help, and what other measures are available to explore for individuals that cannot or don't respond to pharmaceuticals, by giving them options for alternatives.
And for me, my story. I've been on the front lines of this since 2020. I get hit with COVID. I lost friends from COVID. Then I started being what they call an early advocate for long haul syndrome. Ended in the hospital 10 times in the first year, watching the insanity on the hospital wards and seeing from my own two eyes people not getting care or treatment and being gaslit and told there's nothing wrong with them. Now, right now, we know there's over 200 signs and symptoms. This came out in September of 2020 with long haul syndrome, 160 known signs and symptoms. So the two groups are connected together. They are suffering from a very similar thing. So what is that similar thing? And we go, wow, it's been 5.5 years and they can't figure out what the hell's going on. How come we do? How come we can just pull blood work and look at the semi-quant IgG SARS-CoV-2 antibody test that we've been using since 2022, and no one else seems to have a fucking clue what's going on here? I'm going, this is insanity. And the last time we had this much insanity, and another thing, look at that B12 up there. No methylating. Lots of that's happening. No methylation of 12, 6. Like, we see the blood work. You got to know what you're looking for, and then you can get to the cause. But I show that because if we know this, how in the hell does Bobby and the rest of those highly billion-dollar NIH industries don't have a clue and keep going, wow, it's a mystery. It's a mystery. Really, Bobby? Let's pull another mystery up. Let me go. This was in 21 when we posted this. This is a cytokine panel of the interleukins. Oh, these are really important because it's your damn immune system. Your interferon signaling is being suppressed. You know what last time we seen that happen? HIV, the 80s. And then you just go down the panels. You don't have to run this full panel. You can run IL-6 at almost every patient and find that they have a storm or they have their. So the blood work is where you do the research and the doctors can look at, like, it's like going to a mechanic and go, what's wrong with me? Well, let me plug in the ECU and I can tell me what's wrong with it. That's what these panels are for.
Right.
And again, you're going to tell me 5.5 years later, NIH goes, oh, we don't know, nothing to see here. Everyone's just fine. No, they're not. They're sick. They're deathly sick. We know they're sick and they need help. So this is why people like you, all the Linuses out there, all the nurses out there speaking, you're living history. You are witnesses to genocide. And I hate to say it on this level, but that is absolutely true. They sent people home with no treatment. Isolate for 10 days while this thing just rocks and rolls and destroys your lungs and you just, oh well. So we are trying to be a solution to the problem. So when we're speaking our truth. We're speaking as Christians. We cannot turn away from what we are seeing when we're just desperately going, please help our people. And this is, all right, we're going to go into the video. And you know, guys, when I laugh, when I have it, it's not like I'm doing it on purpose. I don't think it's funny. It's like a nervous reaction because I get so mad. I can either get pissed or I can kind of let it out as a laugh. So please excuse me when I do that, because I get riled up knowing that these bastards, no matter who they are, politics comes into play. And you know, Shelley, I'm not trying to take over Hurricane Shelley's position because he's been a much calmer person lately, and I love that. But we need to keep the fight. So watch this video, and I promise you're going to be pissed.
The Pentagon was very worried about actually launching a full-blown bioweapons arms race because they said nobody, you know, this is very sketchy. The Patriot Act, you know, exemptions are very sketchy and people don't even know about it. And so they didn't want to do it. So they took the money that Cheney gave them, $2.2 billion, and they funneled it through NIH, and it all went through Anthony Fauci. So beginning in 2002, Anthony Fauci got a 68% raise from the Pentagon for doing bioweapons development.
Wow.
And he got a raise of billions of dollars a year to do it. And then he started that's when they started doing all this gain of function. And then in 2014, 3 of those bugs escaped in high-profile escapes from different labs in the United States. Fauci had built all these new labs at BU, at Galveston, to do his shenanigans. And so 3 of the bugs escaped, and they received publicity. They had smallpox and a lot of really bad things. And then Congress held hearings on it. Everybody was angry. These bugs escaped, and 300 scientists, top scientists, sent letters to Obama saying, you got to shut down Anthony Fauci because he's going to create a pandemic. And so Obama ordered a moratorium. And at that time, Fauci had 18 different gain-of-function experiments he was doing around the United States. But Obama ordered him to shut them all down, but he didn't. He instead moved his stuff offshore to Wuhan, where he could do it out of sight of these 300 scientists and nosy White House officials who were trying to shut him down. And they continued to do it with Ralph Baric, the same people he was funding here, Ralph Baric,
Wow.
and Peter Daszak, and they moved their operations to the Wuhan lab.
Wild, just wild.
You know, we've got video after video of these people sharing, you know, the heads speaking on bioweapons. Tulsi Gabbard laid it out chapter and verse, but yet once they get into office, it's nothing to see here. These are not your droids.
Right.
Shut up. Move forward. Move along, idiots. And we're going, hold on here. 1/3 of the population, totally around the globe, 1/3 of the population is going to suffer some form of either the wild release that they've known about, multiple labs. You know, I was saying this in 2021 because I was working with people like Dr. Tal Brown, and I was on these teams. You know, the receipts are out there. These are trained bioweapons that understand technology. And they were saying early on, you know, they did these programs very much like they did Oppenheimer. They separated the team, so not the left arm didn't know what the right arm was doing. They were all working on this gain of function technology. But the cool thing is they all left fingerprints. There is just like a painting where they sign the bottom of the painting. Each piece of the work will show which lab and which team worked on it. And all we need are people that really want to prosecute and do something about the genocide that has been bestowed upon the planet, because we cannot get away from this. You know, you just seen Deion Sanders and you shared his video going, you know, they keep cutting my toes off, and you know, I think something must be going on here. Well, what's that something that has been going on that he did? What did he do? A few of those. And you know, I'm gonna play another thing real quick because I'm trying to lead up to why we continue to fight so much. It seems to be the most intelligent people seem to have the hardest time understanding what has been done to us. And I'm not saying we're not intelligent, but you know, the people that astute themselves to being highly intelligent. And this one right here just came out, and it's not really got very much traction yet, but it's going to rock the community once they understand what's going on.
Hey guys, I have an update on my dad. I'm actually just going to read this. It's on my teleprompter because this is too hard to explain off the cuff, so I wrote it out. This summer has been exceedingly difficult. Dad was in an ICU suffering from pneumonia and sepsis after dealing with a host of neurological issues this summer that we believe stem from SIRS, which is chronic inflammatory response syndrome due to decades of mold exposure. We don't have a better explanation for his neurological symptoms at the moment other than spiritual attacks. He's been suffering for the last number of years with unexplainable neuropathy and weakness, amongst other symptoms, but they worsened this summer after he cleaned out his parents' basement after his dad, my grandpa, passed away. We weren't able to communicate with Dad really all of September. During the end of the pneumonia, he was diagnosed with critical illness polyneuropathy, which we're hoping is critical illness myopathy, which is bad enough. That's been heartbreaking and brutal on top of everything else. But after almost a month in the ICU, he's been moved out to a less urgent floor. Praise God for that. We're still in the midst of this, but now we're seeing improvements daily. The timeline for his full recovery is hard to tell at the moment, and I'll update everyone when we have more information. My family's asking for prayers. Like I said, this summer's been exceedingly difficult and terrifying. Dad's condition is complicated by the fact he can't take most medications without suffering from severe paradoxical reactions, which limits treatment options. Like I mentioned, I believe there's a spiritual element at play here. I think a lot of people have felt it in the last few weeks and months. It's been hitting my dad and my family hard this summer. In August, the day Dad was brought to a hospital by ambulance, my newborn Audrey was also brought to a hospital by ambulance within hours of each other. It was unbelievable. This was the second time this summer we had brought Audrey to the hospital after she almost died from near heart failure at 6 weeks old. That is exceedingly rare, and they couldn't find a cause for. She was diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary hypertension, which seems to have resolved, praise God. But it's not something.
So I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's 6 minutes long, but just in those two things that she's speaking of, if you've been in the vaccine injured community, if you've been in the long haul community, if you've seen patients with the over 200 known signs and symptoms, they usually come in between, say, 16 to 22 signs and symptoms per patient. These are not rare things that we are seeing. Dr. James Thorpe did a documentary called Shot Dead.
Right.
And they are covering this. No way in hell a 6-week-old new infant is having these type of issues unless there is something causing it. And I guarantee you, both of them, I think they've talked about it, have taken the injections. And I think if you go back to her history, because she's a big advocate for carnivore, and that's, for me in the long haul community, that was an early thing that we did to stop the histamine effects and all the other crap that was going on. But guarantee you, dime for donuts, that both of them are having these post biospike issues, and they just take a simple test. I guess that's another thing we can talk about, right? How can you do a basic evaluation if you are dealing with signs and symptoms post-COVID, post-jab, that can kind of give you a heads up that maybe there's something wrong? You want to hand that off to you and kind of give a few things that you would suggest in that realm?
Well, I mean, for starters, we have to teach people how to identify what does it look like to possibly be vaccine injured, right? I mean, this is the problem that we're having, is that physicians don't even know what they're looking for. They don't understand, the blood work that you briefly explained. They're not making the connection that these patients are not able to fight because their immune system with time is slowly declining, and they become more susceptible to, like you said, these cytokine storms, these neurological issues, these cardiovascular issues. And so again, teaching people how to recognize what a potential vaccine injury looks like. It doesn't necessarily mean you're completely incapacitated. It could be new onset of tremors. It could be, new onset seizures. It could be neurological issues. And of course, going to a trusted physician that you're able to have these conversations with, to say that you recently had something that was suspected to be a possible injury, and running tests, which currently right now we just have the antibody test that most people gravitate towards, which is like at a LabCorp or a Quest. We are in the works, not me, but there are groups in the works that have testing that should be coming down the pipeline that can actually separate which it's coming from, whether it's from the actual disease itself or the actual vaccine, which has not ever been done before. But that is in the works, but also too, doing the blood work that you showed that can break down what is potentially going on with the patient when it comes to their immune response, and see, is there anything amiss? Is there anything going on with inflammation and things that could trigger possibly what these vaccines have done to these individuals? And again, to be fair, some of it can range, and not everyone is going to experience the same thing, which can make it a little difficult to diagnose. But people will say causation, correlation, doesn't always go hand in hand. But if you had not had anything else happen health-wise, and that was the only change that you had, just like we see in children, these healthy babies meeting all their milestones, and then the second they get vaccinated, within so many days to weeks, they regress and have all these issues. Well, and the only new thing was these vaccines, then that is something that needs to be looked at. And for anyone to challenge that and to say that that's not a possibility, where they will throw any other thing out there that could potentially be a problem except the vaccine, that's when you know that we're still not in the place we need to, and why people like Dan and I consistently show up to keep talking about it and making noise, so that people understand that you have to consider everything and you have to address it and help these people by identifying it in some fashion. So those are just some of the things. There's a lot more, but again, it's getting to the root cause of what has changed, and the basic blood work, some of the antibody testing, and fingers crossed in the next less than a year or so, a different test that might be able to help identify specific to those who are vaccine injured related to the vaccine.
Yeah, we talk about the spike protein, and for me, they're both, one's wild and the other one's injected. But the instructions that are given within inside the cells, the host cells, to amplify, which means it's a fancy word for replicate, self-amplifying, automatically replicating the code that they've been given. Now you have more spike. And once this quantitative test comes out, where you will see exactly how much spike, because the antibodies are just immune system's police going after, looking for the spike. It's going off of how much of the police are out there in your immune system trying to find the spike. And
Yes.
and the test, because it is the immune system, even if you're treating successfully, it takes 3 months, 6 months, 9 months before those antibodies will stop dropping down. Where the quantitative tests come into play, that for people that are utilizing protocols or establishing protocols, it will actually show who's got the most effective protocol.
Right.
Now, also, they're going to be shocked once they see that once these quantitative spike tests come out, they're going to find out I'm a pureblood, but I got antibody levels that, or spike protein that's from Johnson & Johnson, or from Pfizer, or from Moderna, or Sputnik. And that's where the lawyers are going to go, haha, thank you. Finally, we got some evidence here.
Exactly.
We can start attacking. So that's why we're excited about this test. We know
Right.
the players behind this, and we know the science is solid because there's been trialing and so forth and so on. But, it's not been sponsored by Big Pharma, or Big Pharma is what we call them. It's been, self-funded by frontline heroes, scientists, PhDs, people that really can spin the ball on all the science that gain of function Fauci and friends we're doing. So we are so excited about that, because there's so many things that can do on a different level. But until then, the spike protein antibody test is a good basic. It's a good one.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like, you want to know or not? If you're having all these crazy signs and symptoms, and your doctor, your Western trained medicine doctor, look, mine was from Harvard and couldn't figure out nothing in 2020. And here I am feeding them stuff like ivermectin, things in 2020. I'm like, listen, I'm on the teams, dude. Here, I'm giving the science. He was afraid Men in Black were going to come for him. But
It's true.
Exactly. Education, advocating, and being a part of the solution. This is what Hope for Humanity is all about, 2020, Hope House Orlando, and all the advocates that we work with, is to get these tests and funding available so we can start helping our brothers and sisters. We're talking tens of millions of people. It's not, we're not over exaggerating when we're talking about this. And the biggest thing that they've done to show their hand is they blocked all of us. The misinformation doesn't, like Aaron Andrews. Is it Aaron Andrews? No, Aaron Elizabeth. Sorry, Aaron, from Health Nut News. Or, my account was blocked and banned for life on YouTube for sharing ivermectin. A PSA for crying out loud in 21.
It's so bad. It's still bad. We still have censorship. I mean, there's still a lot of things that we can't say, we can't put out there. And again, that just shows you we have more work to do, because these are the things that people will tell you in a whole other groups that they don't even know what we're talking about. They still don't think that this stuff is real. They don't think that vaccine injuries exist. They think it's absolutely insane that a vaccine could cause harm because you're being told by a medical professional that it's safe and effective. And, gone are those days where we're going to blindly accept that motto, and that we are educating and raising awareness to give people the tools and empower them to demand informed consent and make sure that they are being bold in their convictions to get answers. I do not teach to necessarily stray away from vaccines. I can't tell you to do that. That's not my place. My place is to give you information so that you can do your research and make the best informed decisions for you and your family. But do note that currently we still don't have informed consent being given the way it should. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, they used fear and coercion and segregation to get these individuals to take these vaccines. And now we are seeing the ramifications. I saw it happen in real time. People were being injured. They were dying. We tried to come forward. We tried to make sure that people knew that these things were happening, and why is no one noticing this? We were censored, we were silenced, and now we get to go 4 or 5 years later, and our dear friends, Michelle, Danielle, Carolina, Britt, there are so many people that have been vaccine injured, Cody Hudson, Dan, long haul COVID. It's not fair. And there's so many things that we could have been further along on to help others. But because we were censored and silenced and told we were crazy, they completely negated that. So we could not fix it. And now we're dealing with the ramifications of people that are sick and dying. And that's unacceptable. And that is from our own government. So yeah, I mean, this is at one of the events that we went to. And, again, speaking in regards to vaccine injuries, raising awareness, these people are real. They're not rare. That's a hashtag we use all the time to let people know what these human beings, they have faces and names. These are people that were like you and I. A lot of people assume I'm injured or I had some sort of COVID age. I don't. I'm a nurse that was on the front lines, that saw what was happening, that came forward. And now I advocate for those people that originally people thought were not existent. So it's so important that we continue to discuss and have these conversations and not shy away from them, so that we can continue to build the momentum and get people recognized and the help that they need.
When we went before the Congress and Senate in April 21. So look, for all the vaccine injured and the people that only think it's vaccine injured, there's no way in hell we could have went before the Congress and Senate in April 21 without this being an issue prior. You don't just go before them immediately. And 2,700 people testified before the Congress and Senate to let them know that this was an issue. We were the canaries in the coal mine to what was going to come. And to the point where this was an October of 2020 post. Now, for the younger audience, they would not know what this is.
Right.
But for the older audience, what this is right here, this was 1996. This was the AIDS quilts that survivors would bring for their loved ones. And that's the Lincoln Memorial Square full completely of all the people who died because they did not get treatment, because they were treated lesser than humans for something that we do now know came from a program in the fucking 70s. Sorry, God, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Sometimes. From the 70s that they were part of. And now what are we seeing? This is 22, triple vaccine required, but we just had a study come out. This was Fauci testifying that he couldn't remember nothing. But yeah, when he was put in charge of the bioweapons program in 2004 as a civilian, he can't figure all that out either. But yeah, we know we got you dead to rights when it comes to. And why is cancer rising on Gen X and millennials? And 20 and 30-year-olds are getting just bombarded with cancers right now. And you had MAHA's crying and speaking of what was working, what seems to be an effective treatment. Like the headlines are there.
Right.
The science is catching up too. Look, Oh yeah, this was another thing. Nurses in a same hospital unit, 10 of them had cancer. And then once this got out, 18 of them in the same damn unit. Come
Right.
on. I mean, it's getting ridiculous to the point. This is the last one. Hold on. I'm trying to find. Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to get the right one. It's the Harvard study. I was trying to find the Harvard study where they said it was acquired immune.
Right.
VADES. And no one wants to hear that. They want to go, oh, no, but we can do it with biomarkers.
Well, and I think too, like for people that may still be kind of unfamiliar with that term, it's an autoimmune deficiency, right? I mean, we're seeing some sort of immune response from the vaccine. And so a lot of people are calling it, VADES or, vaccine induced autoimmune. So they're calling it a form of AIDS without HIV. And Dr. Villa also speaks of this out of the Villages, Florida a lot. And her patients are, closely monitored, and she will have these conversations and they're just like starstruck. They have no clue what she means when they're saying you have a form of VADES or AIDS without HIV. It's because of the vaccine destroying your immune system and watching those labs decline over time. So I think it's really important that you're bringing this up and that we're explaining this, because when people hear that, they're not connecting the dots, and it can be really intimidating and overwhelming to hear that. And then what does that mean for them? Like, how do you fix it? What do you do? Is there any hope for it? And that's why people like Dan and I continue to push these, rallies and events and talking about it and going to legislation, because it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And we're going to see more people affected, and eventually their health will potentially change in this fashion. And we need to know where to go from there, which is why Cody's law is so important in the state of Florida to keep recognizing and trying to get passed on a state and federal level. This was put together by Cody Hudson's mom, Heather Hudson, after her son, Cody, in his 20s, was injured by the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine. And he was diagnosed with thrombotic APS, triple positive treatment resistant blood clotting disorder. It was verified in evidence-based research. He has articles written about him. This was confirmed by his vaccine. He is not unique, but he is one that is well known for this and has suffered heart attacks, strokes, strokes. He's had issues with vasculitis, Raynaud's disease, thrombocytopenia, POTS. I mean, he's had numerous things happen to him, and he's not even 25 years old. And he was healthy prior to this. So he, like many others, have had these significant injuries, and they're not being recognized as a vaccine injury, which is the first problem. The second is there's no programs available being recognized for these individuals. The VICP, which is a government-funded program, 99% of the time denies people. The CICP, which is a medical government-funded, program, consistently denies them. And so we're looking for Cody's law to be implemented on a state and federal level, which recognizes that they exist, but also offer Medicaid and Medicare programs that are already in place to give them treatments and hope in a timely fashion to try to give them some sort of quality of life. Many of them are getting worse and dying, waiting to be considered for treatment. This is unacceptable, especially when this comes straight from our government. This is not okay. We treat cancer patients. We have programs for them. Why can't we do it for the vaccine injured? And as many people are affected, this is the next pandemic. And we're not just talking about COVID-19. We're talking all vaccinations. Anybody that's vaccine injured can be recognized with this law in place. And so it's really unfortunate that we're the free state of Florida and we're pioneering so many things when it comes to the vaccines and, banning the jabs and calling a halt to all of these COVID-19 vaccines for their harm. But we're not addressing the vaccine injured, the very people that have been harmed by these vaccines that we're asking to stop giving, as our state surgeon general has said numerous times. Why are we wanting them to be stopped? Because they've caused harm and they're hurting people. Now, what do we do for those people that have been harmed? That's where we come in, and we're advocating as medical advocates to get legislation changed and bills put in place to help them.
And again, it's the bare minimum. To me, that's just the bare minimum. the absolute bare minimum you can do for these people. Safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective. They heard it a gazillion times. They hit all the adverse reactions. Thank God for Brooke Jackson. I am Brooke Jackson, an ex, exposing what she's seen during the original trials. When I was speaking in 2020 going, yo, we got a problem here. Strokes, heart attacks, and death were happening. Reactivation, latent dormant viruses are happening, like weird stuff. Because they were trying to walk long haulers that were advocates early on. They told long haulers, rotten bastards, that the mRNAs would cure their long haul syndrome. And meanwhile, while I'm screaming Fauci is the evil bastard that he was in 2020, and all the other advocates going, why? He's such a nice, you don't understand that. Like, no, I understand completely as a former pharma manager and understanding how the FDA worked and understanding medical, going, there's something off here. There's something very wrong and rotten in Denmark for how they're reacting, because you don't give someone who's got a freaking immunodeficiency more crap to get their immune system going haywire. Because that's the whole purpose. What gets me going about the pharmaceutical industry is like ADHD medication. All right, the whole premise was the original ADHD drug was called Obitrol. 50s and 60s, every housewife was hopping on that stuff. Boy, it was like speed on speed. They were depressed, Obitrol. If they had weight problems, Obitrol. It didn't matter, just Obitrol was it. By the 70s, they said, hey guys, you can't be prescribing this anymore like this. So they almost went bankrupt. And then this nice, sweet company called Pfizer came in the 90s and bought them, and then hired a few scientists for pseudoscience and goes, you know what? If you're a speedy person, ADHD, ADD, whatever the terminology they added to it, and you took a speed, two positives are going to create a negative. And voila, that was all the science they had. And next thing you know, America is chomping this stuff down like crazy. And the company I worked for, which was like the Apple of pharma, where they tried to make clean products, created two alternatives, a weight loss product and an Adderall alternative. And we made it OTC, and it was crushing it. And then I watched the old FDA come in and smash us like a bug, because Pfizer's $4 billion baby had a real challenge. So, I mean, I've seen it on all sides. I understand the enemy. I know myself, and I'm going, we are against the evil empire in this. And I wasn't like this. I know medicine can be used for right things. There are still amazing life-saving drugs out there. I know that, and I don't knock it for that.
Right.
But to intentionally harm, to intentionally ignore the amount of death, they didn't even do autopsies on these COVID people who died. They don't do autopsies on the ones that died from the jab. They don't acknowledge any of that. So there's plenty of, if we were the Candace Owens of our world and we deep dive into it, we should start doing a whole series of all the inadequacies in the medical world that have caused where we are currently, because it's pay for play. Just like Johnny, whatever his name was, you hear about them getting paid for all the deaths of our loved ones in the hospitals during COVID. Like, what the hell is that? 100,000, 150,000 for COVID death? Like, just weird things. And then Run Death is Near, which failed trials in Africa for Ebola. It was killing more people than Ebola in the trials, so they stopped the trials for remdesivir and said, hey, Fauci brings it over here. This is going to work for you guys. So it reminds me of another drug from the 80s called AZT.
AZT, yep.
The most expensive drug in history.
We still give remdesivir in the hospital, even in the state of Florida. Those who sell the panic sell the cure, right? I mean, these people are coming to the forefront with billions of dollars and these broken promises to say that they're going to cure. But can anyone in any of these organizations tell us what have they done to cure any of these diseases or ailments? There is nothing that they've done to cause anything to be better. As a matter of fact, everything that they put in the path that is given to society seems to make them worse and more dependent on pharmaceuticals. And you mentioned, when it came to the autopsies, which is extremely important that we address, because one of the other bills that our very own MAHA wanted to try to introduce in next session in the state of Florida is regarding sudden death in the young population, essentially because Florida has very inconsistent reporting when it comes to vaccine records. And usually the medical examiners are not required to investigate further. And so this particular bill that we're going to start pushing alongside Cody's law, is to hold the medical examiners to strengthen the bill 406.11 to basically say that medical examiners have to be able to explain in detail by asking the vaccine status within, I believe it's 90 days of a death. If it's sudden infant death syndrome, adult death syndrome, and be able to explain and report these things, because everyone always comes to us and says, well, where's the data? What proof do you have that this person could have passed from a vaccine? Well, if we're not required to report it, if medical examiners are not required to ask, then how are you going to obtain the data? So this is a bill proposal, again, drafted by MAHA. She's with REACT and also Florida CHD, and works alongside Stand for Health Freedom, is trying to put this bill proposal forward so that we can get sponsors in the House and Senate to recognize that we are continuing to see sudden death in infants, children, and adults, and that must be accounted for. And this is going to require medical examiners to ask the questions and to be able to report it to the health department, especially under the age of, a certain age is her first requirement, because some of these things can be a little hard to get into depending on your wording. So we have to start somewhere, which is what happened back in 2023 with our vaccine bills. They did not go through like they should have. They had to adjust a little bit to accommodate not sounding too anti-vax, and why in 2023 we lost our bill SB 222 and instead had to compromise with SB 252 when it comes to COVID-19 vaccines and how Floridians are protected. So again, we start with certain bills to try to get our foot in the door and start a process, and then eventually build on this. This particular one is to identify why these people are suddenly dying. And can you not account for the vaccines? And this is going to require the medical examiners to have to answer those questions and report it accordingly, and make sure that they still go within HIPAA compliance, but that it is required that they do so. So this is huge. I don't know if people know this, that they are not asking these, they don't have to ask these questions, and that a lot of times they are not being reported. So this is why we don't have the best accuracy in reporting and data when it comes to the sudden death of an individual, and how currently a vaccine within a certain time frame is not required to disclose.
Well, thank you, Jesus, for LAUD-Co and the state taking off the mandate for our kids, because I've lived a good life. God had an accident, crossed over. God sent me back down for this last 5.5 years of fun. And my whole ultimate goal is to make sure our people no longer have to die the way they are dying and suffering. Right now, our people are in the desert trying to get to the land of milk and honey. And people like us who spend endless amounts. I mean, I know I spent over 10,000 hours on research with the teams trying to find ways to countermeasure these biospike proteins, how to get them out of the system, how to repair the mitochondria, because that's just one of the most massive issues is the batteries are getting sucked dry. And if you have an iPhone with 5%, you're not getting very far. Right. And, so getting solutions to the problems, getting accurate data for the public and for the people in charge to go, oh, this is definitely not working. These things that they keep putting in people's bodies that are overstimulating the immune system, causing the immune system to kick its own ass, like we're in Liar Liar and Jim Carrey in the bathroom going, what are you doing? What does it look like I'm doing? The immune system is just going haywire and beating the crap out of each other. And then you see all these celebrities right now, because I keep going back to the 80s. And I go back to the 80s because that's the last time we had something like this happen on the scale that it's happened. And so you can learn from the past so you can kind of figure out in the future. And then when you see people like Fauci and the rest of the evil empire that were part of that are a part of this, and then you can kind of go, okay, now we know what areas are being attacked. We knew,
Right.
2020, I'm going, immune systems matter, immune systems matter, immune systems matter, hashtag. Check your T cells, check your B cells, check your NK cells, because that's your immune system. And we don't have a finite amount of resources. So while the while the arsonists, the spike proteins are going around causing little fires in your bloodstream and everywhere else, your organs like you're talking about, we got to neutralize those and we got to repair the damage that's done. So this is what Hope House is all about. Like, we've been successfully treating patients since 2022. We did trials in 2022 in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, just outside of CDC's realm in Roswell. And in just 1 week, we were mapping brains because we knew the neurocognitive disorders that were happening, because I was working with the Mind Spa Institute, George Roselle, who's a senior fellow in brain mapping and dealing with these traumatic brain injury type of patients. He treated me for a year. And he goes, 30 years of doing this, 30 years of mapping brains and treating with neurofeedback. I had never seen something like this where it moves. And I was diagnosed with what Bruce Willis was diagnosed with. Wow. Maximum frontal Lewy body dementia. A year before Bruce. Look where Bruce is at and look where I'm at currently. By this time of night, I tell Short, because Shelly and I talked a couple days ago, and she's doing much better, thank you, Jesus.
Amen.
The sundowner effect that happens from this. And for the long haulers or vaccinated that are listening right now, their brains are probably fried at this time of night because they're having that type of effect. I tell a story and I joke about it because it was that bad. I did laundry probably around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I stayed up and dried the clothes. And the next day, I can't find my clothes. I'm looking everywhere. I'm tearing every drawer up. I only have a two-bedroom condo. I'm like, what in the hell's my clothes? And then I get thirsty after 2-something hours. I open the refrigerator. There's my shirts. And I open my freezer, and there's my pants, all my clothes. So, the amount of issues that are happening to these poor patients that are suffering this hell, it is inhumane that we are not doing something about this right here, right now, 5.5 years later. So I'm going to play a video. I got 2 more videos before we get off that I feel are necessary. I keep going back to the 80s because it's very similar. There's a movie that I spoke of 4 movies early on. And the Band Plays On, Dallas Buyers Club, Philadelphia, and Rent. Those 4 movies will school you up to what patients are dealing with currently. But then I came across a gem last weekend, 2 weekends ago, The Normal Heart. I say Pretty Woman, but Julia, I can't remember her name. It's so
Roberts.
Crazy. Julia Roberts, Mark Ruffalo's in it. All the Wokies are in it. All the big Hollywood stars. And it's a true story based off of one of the very first advocacy groups on what they called the gay cancer. And even though I've known for 4 years or 5 years that this was going to cause an immuno type of response and failure, I couldn't understand why they named it gay cancer at first. Well, it's because by the time these patients found out they were really sick and had issues, they already had the cancer. So their immune systems, left untreated for 3 to 4 or 5 years, got to this point where they all had these rare cancers. Well, we're 5 years into this, and we're seeing cancers like hell, like everywhere. So I'm just, FYI, going back forth. There's a reason for it. And this clip is a doctor that was a part of that Frontline at the very beginning, presenting to the NIH. This is a scene from that movie, The Normal Heart.
How dare you come down here and judge me?
We only serve on this peer review panel at the behest of Dr. Murray.
Another idiot. And, by the way, a closeted homosexual doing everything in his power to sweep this under the rug. And I vowed I'd never say anything like that in public. How does it always happen that all of the idiots are always on your team? How can you refuse to fund my research or not invite me to participate in yours? Your National Institutes of Health received my first request for money 2 years ago. It took you 1 year just to print up application forms. It's taken you 3 years from my first reported case just to show up here for a look, and the paltry amount of money you are forcing us to beg for out of the $4 billion you now receive each and every year to protect the health of the American people won't come to anyone before only God knows when. A promising virus has been discovered in France. Why do you refuse to cooperate with the French? Why are we told not to cooperate with the French? Just so you can steal a Nobel Prize while something is being passed around that causes death. Women have been discovered to have it in Africa, where it is clearly transmitted heterosexually. It is only a question of time. We could all be dead before you do anything. You want my data? You want my ideas? You want my papers? take them! Just do something with them! You're fucking right, I am imprecise and unfocused, and you are all idiots!
That's what our doctors and our researchers and all the teams that I've been a part of have been doing that same type of work. And they thought, silly us, that once Kennedy got in, that they would have us in and really try to get down to the nitty gritty, knowing that Bobby Kennedy was speaking on the bioweapons, and knowing, I know one person personally, and I think you might know him too, that actually schooled them, Children's Health Defense, on what we knew about bioweapons and the programs and all the nasty little details of how they did the cancer program using SV40 and all the fun things in the 70s. So there's no excuse for this any longer. We need to come together. As a Christian, if you do not understand a damn word we're saying, just know that we are brothers in Christ, and that we are doing what Jesus did, helping the sick and helping the poor to the best way we possibly can. It might not be much. We might be a ragtag group from all over the country, all over the world, kind of getting together and doing our part. I'll be damned if we're going to let our people be killed in genocide for something that should be stopped right here, right now. And I get that type of piss with how she feels, because I get to hold the hands, and you do too, of these poor patients that need help so desperately. And I promise you, to my last breath, Nicole, and you've known me long enough, my goal is to get these hope houses open, getting treatment to them now, and ending the suffering of our mankind. And if we can all get together, because there's nothing better with me seeing this scaled up to where we're treating thousands of patients every day, and we are ending the wave of death and contributing to medicine to where we have a healthy society, not a sick care society.
Yeah. And just really quick, I want people to take away one thing that a lot of people will say, you know, it doesn't affect me. I have, you know, nobody that forced you to get these vaccines. And, you know, to that, I just want to say that if you yourself are not injured, you're going to know someone who is. You're going to know people that are affected, that are hurting, and that health-wise are continuing to decline. And just because it doesn't directly affect you in the interim, do note that it weighs heavy on our healthcare system that's already broken, and all of the outpatient type you know, procedures and interventions and different things that could be offered to them, you know, can take place in something that you may need as well. And so if we don't address these individuals, if we don't address what we call the elephant in the room, you're going to continue to have a rapid decline of society as a whole, because it ranges from infancy to adulthood. And these people have to be recognized. They have to receive timely treatment, because if not, we're going to continue to have these individuals seeking healthcare that's already broken, be a continuum in the healthcare system on repeat. They're going to continue to drain resources. And we want to make sure that we give people the opportunity to have some access to alternatives, preventions, and be able to live some sort of quality of life, to be productive members in society, because they were once just like you and I, and now their entire world is flipped upside down, and they need to have compassionate and care. And this is why we continue to fight. Dan and I don't get paid for any of this. We continue to show up. It's not about the money. It's like he said, fighting to our last breath, to know that this is a form of genocide on Americans and globally. And we can't accept that any longer. Things have to change. We have to do it at a local level. Use your voice, speak up. You can no longer be silent. Please join us in helping with our grassroots efforts to change not only what we do in our state, because Dan and I both live in Florida, but beyond, to give people help and hope. There's cancer protocols out there with Dr. Isles Bagley and Dr. William Mackis. There's other resources like Dan has with Hope House Orlando. You just need to know where to go. We need people to help, want to get involved and donate, and to put themselves out there so that we can end this. We can raise awareness enough to where we can help people and give them some sort of quality of life.
When I was traveling with Pete Chambers, Lieutenant Colonel retired, Dr. Pete Chambers, for 3 months, I was so fortunate to be on the road with that hero. You know, he was a DOD whistleblower. He actually seen the rollout of the shots on the border, 6,000 soldiers. Three of them died in their sleep within the first 3 weeks of rollout. And what did the military list it as? That it was heat exhaustion. Well, the problem with that was they were all staying in hotels. So Pete knew something was up at the very beginning. But while we were traveling and we were speaking to doctors around the country, I mean, we did like 6,000 miles in something like 10 days. It was insane just driving. I told them we could have 1,000 of the devices I use, cold laser therapy, in every major city would not put a dent in what we were going to see. And that was in 2022. So we just knew the battlefield. We were looking at the 40,000 view and going, holy crap, what else can we do? And it's getting our brothers and sisters together. It's sharing, becoming our own virus. Share, like, comment, all that stuff. Because anybody like us that's speaking, believe me, we're on somebody's list. You put the whole line, our hashtags, DanTheMessenger. We are, at one point I had 5.5 million registered TikTok hashtags for DanTheMessenger. And then all of a sudden, whoop, they're all
Wow. Yeah.
36 TikTok accounts, 9 X accounts. I was in Facebook jail out of 2 years. In 2022, it was 10 months I was in Facebook jail just in 1 year. 10 out of 12 for just speaking truth. So if you're afraid of speaking the truth or hearing the truth, then what's the lie? Like we've caught them 7 ways of Sunday lying to us. Scratch a lie, find a thief. Anybody in the Bible, Nicole, will know that you get unveiled to the darkness. It's pretty easy to see it, right? I'm gonna play one more thing and then we'll close out because I know we're at the hour mark. And I thank you for coming on tonight. And I thank everybody that's grumpy, paranoia. I love the names.
They're amazing. They also are really close friends. So I'm glad they could join us.
Thank you for hanging out. Lioness, thank you for sharing and resharing, because look, our X accounts are like little mosquitoes out there because they keep our voices suppressed. You mentioned Real Not Rare. This was a PSA from realnotrare.org back in 21.
We are ready to invest, as the president also mentioned.
Hello, Pfizer.
Hello, Pfizer.
Hello, Moderna.
Hello, Pfizer.
Hello, Pfizer.
Hello, Moderna.
Hello, Pfizer.
Hello, Pfizer.
Hello, Moderna.
Hello, Pfizer.
Hello, Pfizer.
Hello, Moderna. Hello, Pfizer.
Hello, Pfizer.
Hi, AstraZeneca.
Hello, Pfizer. Hello, Pfizer.
Hello, J&J. Hello, Pfizer.
Hello, CDC.
Hello, CDC.
Hello, CDC.
Hello,
CDC.
Hello, FDA.
Do you need to fire medical? I think I need to do it.
Let's set the record straight.
Our goal is not intended to spread a further divide in the vax versus anti-vax community. We are pro-choice,
Pro-information.
but most importantly, pro-safety. We have been hurt.
Our lives have been altered.
And we need help.
Doctors are scrambling for answers.
And we are desperate for help.
Help share our stories. Help our voices be heard. Help us bring together the medical community
So we can receive the help we so desperately need.
We are real.
We are real.
We are here.
We are here.
And we want our lives back. We are real, not rare.
Hashtag real, not rare. Hashtag real, not rare.
And most of them were nurses that were in that PSA.
Yeah, it could have been me. It could have been me. That's what I'm saying. Like, it could have been any one of us. So that's why we have to just, like you said, be the Christians. When you're called, you answer, and people need to be helped. But we have to come together. If we stay divisive, we're not going to get any further along. It's really, really sad that this is the reality for, I would suggest, millions of people. They just don't know it. And this is something that people don't want to admit. And these people are progressively getting worse. And there has to be some form of acknowledgement and hope. Again, I don't always want to make it so negative when it comes to vaccine injuries and making it their identity, but there are a lot of things that go hand in hand with those statements. And knowing that we still are 5 years later not able to say that someone is vaccine injured, they don't want to identify it, they don't want to offer solutions to them when they're just trying to have some sort of quality of life, is just absolutely mind-blowing. And this is where we come together as a community, as Dan always says, and I always say, Isaiah 6:8, send me. We want warriors and people to come to the front lines, to stand with us in arms, to say that we know what happened. it's not going to happen again, and that we need to help our brothers and sisters, because without it, we'll fall. We will never advance if we don't do this. So, I just, again, thank you, Dan, for having me, standing alongside in the fight. On Nurses Out Loud, we talk about this a lot as well. And then Paranoid Radio, he's one of the ones that joined your live. Just so many people out there trying to spread the word and message and get things out. So just thank you for everything you do, Dan. People don't know how much of a warrior you are yourself, and the things that you have done selflessly for years and without the recognition, what you do for people that can't give you anything back. That speaks absolute volumes, and why I will always ride or die with you, because I just know that's where your heart is.
And I get a lot of thanks a lot of times from our frontline, co-warriors. And I just go, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
God called me and I answered the call. And, when I look him in the eye and he asks what I did, I'll say everything I could.
I know.
And
I appreciate it.
One thing I do want to do, because I spent 20 years in the entertainment industry. I've been around celebrities my almost entire adult life. And to watch them turn their backs on us, good connections I had, I go, all right. But I came up with an idea, because these events are just as important that one you just held 2 weeks ago, because they're thankless events. They take so much of your time.
Right.
And the people do show up and get educated, but then that's it.
Yeah.
The community just kind of goes away. And as much as we appreciate that, we need a consistent movement. We need to build like a snowball, just keep growing. And it hit me. For the older audience, there was an entertainer, very famous entertainer, that started doing something about a major problem, muscular dystrophy. Jerry Lewis. What did he do every year?
You talking about the fundraiser, the event, like the challenge?
Marathon.
Marathon.
Every year he did 24-hour marathon. And he would get people, entertainers, celebrities, and, make it a little entertaining, also make it informative. A little entertaining, a little informative. 24 hours, raising money, raising funds. And in today's society, we are globally connected on these little interweb things. And we have so many of our frontline brothers and sisters that we can pull together and make a 24-hour informative stand, where we connect all the global communities that are part of it. So we kind of hand it over, all right, you're in this time zone now, as we continue on. So that was one of my epiphanies a couple weeks ago, going, okay, I think we could do this.
I love it.
I think that we can get a lot of the frontline heroes, a lot of our entertainers. Number one thing I see missing right now, HIV had about a dozen songs that they connected to. The last song from Elton John is one that, when I was at my worst, when I was down to 160 pounds, when multiple strokes, early stage MS, microbiome eviscerated, the Alzheimer's, all that stuff was killing me. I would listen to that song, because at nighttime, not only would my kidneys be feeling like someone was sticking me with an ice pick, but my blood felt like it was literally on fire. And in that song, there's a lyric that says, "The fire beneath my skin." I knew exactly what that lyric meant. Our generation of injured and long COVID don't have a song to listen to or hold on to. And I'd like to see some entertainers kind of use some creative outlets. Just like Charlie, in memory, people started doing paintings for him. And people are collecting that. And he deserves all the accolades for what he was doing, taking the back to those people, taking it to the front line of where they're poisoning our children, the well, and unpoisoning the well. And so what we're trying to do is unpoison what they did in a different sense by injecting stuff that they applied through the teeth. But give hope, give a way to create little grants. Because, once you calm the immune system down to a point where they're not feeling like death's at the door, they're going to need to be on some type of nutraceutical, some type of stack that's going to keep them in that health range. And right now, afford it. Hell, I can barely afford my own stack. So
that's the issue, right? Not only, so we do identify them, then what? There's no resources, there's no money. They're losing everything. They're too sick to work. They end up losing their housing, losing their cars. They have friends and family that don't want to be associated with them, because there's a lot of negativity or, things that go with that, of being a vaccine injured and having to prove yourself. And so they're isolated and they're alone. And if we're just being frank, a lot of them, Okay. There's a lot of people that cannot take it any longer because of the pain and the isolation, and they choose to end it all. And it is just absolutely heartbreaking that this is where we are, and why it's so important that they understand between our children and our mental health crisis in the United States and all the people that are sick and our broken healthcare system. It is a catastrophe. Just, it's going to implode. And thank God our Surgeon General in the state of Florida said to end the mandates, and where it's not perfect and there's going to be some hoops and hurdles to jump through, it's a start. We have to talk about it. We have to give people the understanding that we're not taking your right away to vaccinate. We're making it so that it's not mandated on everyone. Just like we took the fluoride out of the water, you can use fluoride. We don't want to medicate the population as a whole. That's not appropriate. That's not informed consent. So this administration, we're leaning on them to provide transparency and informed consent and giving you the best information possible to make your own decisions and not force those on all of those around you. And when it comes to the vaccine injured, making sure that people understand that they need help. They need to be recognized. I can't stress that enough. Cody'sLaw.org. Follow along on how you can help. We're trying to get that bill pushed. Again, the mandated reporting from the medical examiners for sudden, death syndrome, whether it be an infant or a young adult. We want to make sure that there's things that people are being held accountable, that you must answer to. And if it means putting it into law, that is what we need to do. That is what we're trying to do in the state of Florida. Florida Freedom Keepers, Stand for Health Freedom, React 19. There's all of these groups that are trying to make these things happen. Florida CHD, and we need people to join forces with us and pray for us, and just, please just understand where our heart is, that this has to happen. There is no other way that we can move forward if we do not literally, we're saving humanity, Dan. At this point, that's just all I can say. It's saving humanity.
Well, as believers, as followers of Jesus Christ, he didn't come here to start wars. He came to end them.
Amen.
And this is a war that we are going to end. We're going to make sure that the people that did this will go back to the gates of hell where they belong, and the evil stops walking this planet freely, unabated the way they are currently. They have to deal with the lions and lionesses coming for them. And we're calm and we're collected, and we are very locked in on this particular program. This because it is, to me, out of the 9,999 problems that we are currently dealing with in this insane planet, the bio-spike proteins are going to be number one for a long time, because the amount of damage it is doing. Nick Holzer, I love Nick. I call him Dr. Death these days. Because, I interviewed him. I'm like, dude, you're like the death doctor because you're just giving it to them. But he's giving facts.
It needs to be said.
And he's, one of his latest things, he says 50% of the American workforce currently is calling off 50% of the time. Not because they want to, because they're sick.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're silent suffering. I can't tell you how many influencers reach out to me that are sick as hell selling health products and don't tell their audience that they're sick as hell. And I'm going, that's just, I don't want to be the person causing friendly fire here. I just want to end the fires that we're dealing with.
Right.
And they got to deal with us. Like, the more of us that come together, the bigger the problem they have. Because as the pride comes together, the hyenas will start running. And run like hell, bastards.
Exactly.
Because we're coming for you. We're going to start with Florida. The free state of Florida is going to lead the way with integrative, alternative, hopefully with the new protocol that they have with the military, where they can't take care of you, you can out of care for 1 year. To me, that's a perfect lead into what Hope House can do. That we, because I already treat soldiers. I already donate half my time easily to helping the injured. So if we can start getting funding, then I can hire, I can train, I can scale. Because I can't expect, look, if we had 1 million followers and each one of our followers donated $1 or $5, it'd be easy. It'd be over with.
Of course.
We have been shadow banned in every which way that it's hard to get out or reach out there. But for little people that do, just share, like, comment. Jean, thank you for tuning in. She's been another warrior in the front lines dealing with her issues. The American Shepherd, thank you. As a messenger, I'm still like Steve Harvey. I'm a first level Christian. I can only throw out about a dozen good verses out of there. But I'm a devout follower like you are, and I'll try to get better on the Bible. But right now we are living in biblical times, and we're fighting biblical wars. and the Lions of Judah need to keep coming together. And thank you for coming on, Nurse Nicole.
I love being here.
I'm going to have you on a little more sub-regular, like co-hosting, where we kind of like have roundtables.
Sure.
That to me, I think that'd be another good thing to have, you know, from different fields. And you've got a lot of connections that I don't, because I'm just busy, you know, doing my little thing. So if we could do it like once a month,
that'd be great.
And you know, we'll have a little, kind of like what you did on the event, but on a more just personal level, and then we can have people on the side asking questions and, you know, just kind of giving more hope out there and
engage more people
and build that alliance. And I'll get the podcast back on the bigger networks. I'm on a few already, like iHeart. I just don't have time for the editing and uploading and stuff. If I had a couple volunteers, it'd be much easier. And we will continue to, because next year Cody's Law is going to get passed. That's the mindset of it. We're going to raise an army to raise enough hell that one person can't sit in committee and hold it from being voted on to do the right thing.
Dan, can you tell people where they can help you for the donations for Hope House?
I'm the worst. I'm the absolute worst.
I know.
I'm so bad about that. And BJ, Betty Jean West gives me so much help because I forget. HopeHouseOrlando.org. Well, because listen, I get a lot of people that send me DMs across different platforms, and I just can't answer them all. I just can't. It's too much for my. Oops, I did something. It's too much for our it's too much for me. I can't handle it all. So go to HopeHouseOrlando.org for people that are dealing with sick and ill, you know, either themselves or kids or loved ones. Just put your information in the bar. Doesn't mean I'm going to reply to you instantly because it's going to take a while. But once we get funding, I'm going to go directly to those people that have already put their information there to try to get help to you. On Hope number 4, so Hope with the number 4, humanity2020.com and org, there are donation buttons. And whoever designed it, I haven't updated that website in 4 or 5 years, but the original person that designed it put donate buttons everywhere. And I'm going, okay. But that's where you can donate immediately to, I think, really easy where you click on a donate button. You know, $5, $10.
Can we put it on the banner so they can see it for those in the video, or no? Is that no? Okay, I wasn't sure.
No, I can do it. I
would say because I want to make sure that people know where to go, where to support, how to follow you, because you are one of the few that are treating the vaccine injured. There are people that may be able to reach out or connect. And I think it's so important because, again, we need to get you sponsors and people that are willing to donate or at least raise awareness and spread your message and what you're able to do for others. And we have such loyal people that at least follow me that are amazing, who are willing to help. And so I just think it's great. Yeah. So hopeforhumanity2020.com with the number 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hope number 4, humanity2020.com.org. Our subcommittee of Hope House Orlando is a 501c3. So if you make a donation, it is tax deductible. If you have a nice business, make a ton of money, and you want to do something, because I also want to create a pay it forward campaign. Basically, like let's just say there's a Carolina type person here in town that needs help, and they need the IVs and need some other things. So let's just say it's $5,000 for like 2 months of treatment, where they're getting the IVs, and then we raise that money up, and then we can interview and share that person's story from the beginning to where we get them to a form of remission, and show them what we are capable of doing. We have like a 90% success rate, for crying out loud. It's ridiculous.
And that's the thing. Like, you have to be able to show people the proof, right? They want to see what's going on. So when you're able to highlight this, I think it's so important. It's also really important why we continue to share these stories and put, a name to a face so that you can see who these human beings are that have been injured and what they're going through and the trials that they've had to navigate over the past few years with a very broken healthcare system and a legal system and a government who has left them, behind. So people like Dan, Dr. Villa, Dr. Z, all these individuals that are trying to do the right thing, putting these stories out there, letting people see where they started and some of the progression so that they can show you the hope. Because a lot of times people come at us and say it's always negative, it's death, it's gloom and doom. The reality is there is a lot of this. There is a lot of hurt, there's a lot of harm, and there is a lot of death. We're not going to lie to you. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We need you to be enraged and upset so that you join forces with us to then proceed forward and make sure that we can get these people help. That's how we relate and coexist as humanity, to see what these people are truly suffering through. However, with that, we also want to show you that there are things that have worked for some people. There are things that alternative wise Dan and other doctors can do that give them relief in symptoms and help them have a better quality. But then there's also the demand for funding to be raised so that different studies and different treatments can be looked into that aren't helping certain people yet. That's in the works, that, you know, we need to start that process. And if we don't talk about it and we don't push these things forward, we're never going to get people to do new trials and try new things to help these people that have nothing working for them, which is why we keep talking about it. So again, thank you, Dan, because again, you're one of the few, and people need to know what you're capable of, what you do, and just know that a lot more can be done. There just needs to be help when it comes to funding. And a lot of people, I'm sure, would love to help someone that is helping others. You've done this from your own resources and your good heart, which is amazing. But in order to help more people, there definitely needs to be more funding and sponsorship. So, you know, for those of you watching, please check out the websites, share, post it in other socials, try to get the word out that we can try to have hope for humanity.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Listen, I'll give you a positive story. I had a 30-something tech bro come to us after he went to Mayo and all the other places. He was in New York City, forced to take that, and then he couldn't even. He was the guy who programmed all the algorithms for the tech companies, and he couldn't do it any longer.
Right.
And he went all the special, all those Mayos and whatnot. And by the time he found us, he was, just done. And the day he came there was the day I was treating Carolina, when I first started treating Carolina. And the day before that, Carolina's story was published on Epic Times. And
yes.
So I took him in to kind of show him, how the therapy works. And the door opens and there's Carolina, and he goes, "Oh my God, I just read about you yesterday." And he instantly knew, hey, I'm at the right place.
Mm-hmm.
That was 3 years ago. And he's now back in New York. He's now working back in his industry, and he's living his best life. And this was a back-injury. And he actually came on and shared, I call him a tech bro guy. Like, hey man, get me some crypto.
Yeah.
Help me out, man. Hook a brother up. But that's what I want to be able to continue is, not one thing is going to work for every single person.
Right.
Or not, even different stacks will not work for every person. This
Correct.
is why all the different teams that have been doing the honest work, that with some pilot program funding, we can run the protocols and test apples for apples, oranges to oranges, see what's working the most effectively,
Exactly.
what's the most cost effective, the least side effects, no adverse reaction, all those things. This is where we come into play. This is what put us in, coach. We're ready.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, it's the people who have means right now, they're able to get these therapies. And believe me, I even try to guilt them, because I've treated billionaires, I've treated millionaires, I've treated NFL players, I've treated singers. I had one singer that didn't think he'd ever be able to sing again. He's back on the road. So I go, hey, anybody?
Right.
Wheeler, anyone? And no, it's like once they get out of the forest, they run, because they don't want to have to think about that again. But we are here, and thank you. Everybody that's been hanging out and spending an hour and 30 with us, thank you, because we went over a little bit. Just a little bit. But thank you for doing what you're doing too, Nicole, because listen, sometimes I guarantee you, advocates feel like they're all alone. Just like the patients. Like we go, the one that blew the whistle for Pfizer, that was Pete's producer, will say at times she feels like I got imposter syndrome. Like, is this really happening? Like, no, it's really happening. Yeah. You're not crazy. No. These people just keep coming more and more and more, dying desperately for help. So don't worry, you are on the right side of history. And unfortunately, very few stood up in the gap when we most needed it. Yeah. And you stand in the gap 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. Plus, you got a little pew 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 action going on. So don't ever mess with Nurse Nicole, because she's got that trigger finger that can give you. You want silver or you want lead? She's
That's right.
Either or.
That's right. It's therapy, But you're right. I appreciate that. Sometimes it can be very isolating, very lonely. But at the end of the day, like I can't, it's God. I really can't say anything other than that, because there's days you just want to tap out, you want to give up, you don't want to keep going. It's a lot easier to stay in the background and have a different life that isn't full of sadness and trauma. But I speak for a lot of people that are forever changed, and those that are no longer with us who don't have a voice. And, you know, it's just so important that we don't forget those people and that they don't die in vain, and that we're able to continue to do the right thing at all costs and make sure that there is help out there. And even if we don't see it in our lifetime, which I think we will, that they will know that they had people standing in solidarity with them and willing to hold the line. What I always say is hold the line. There will be nothing to stop me from doing that, just like Dan, until my last breath. So it's just definitely a promise I've made, and I will keep that. And we just hope that people are willing to join us and stand with us and make it happen.
Well, in the Bible, it says knowledge is power. And during dark times, knowledge will be the key to the power. So the ones that are holding on to fake fiat currency and think they have the power, they're in for a rude awakening when the reckoning really happens.
Amen.
And we will say, thank you, Jesus, 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. We stood on our principles. We stood on business. And we did not bow down to the evil empire that bestowed something on a global scale that we hadn't seen since World War II.
Right.
And this is a silent war. This is World War III, but it's a silent. And for Christians and believers and for the frontline heroes, thank you for tuning in, hanging out with us. All right, so this is what we're going to do. Second week of every month, second Wednesday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, but it should be normally Wednesday.
Yes, we can do that.
So second Wednesday of every month, we'll get together. We will try to do paneling. We'll give updates, because we need to build our army for this Cody's Law battle that's ahead of us. We have a short amount of time. It's going to be an election season. There are millions of you that need help. This could lead the way, because Heather made this bill, replicatable, or you could carry it over to other states.
Correct.
So we could lead the way for our injured brothers and sisters around the country with this one bill getting passed. That's how important it is. It can be a game changer for millions.
Amen. And there's a lot of ways to participate. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to put your face out there. So, you know, again, reach out to me on socials, reach out to Dan. Dan was kind enough to put the websites up that you can get more information on Cody, where to donate if you have the opportunity to read about what he's going through and some of the treatments that he needs, which is plasmapheresis, which is $36,000 out of pocket. That could give him some better quality of life. And there's many others like him that this will raise awareness for. So, you know, again, just check it out, see what we've been up to, how you can help, and reach out. And we are just so grateful that you're here.
All right, guys. On that note, God bless you. Have a beautiful, how do we say all this stuff? Have an amazing night. Have a great week. You know, I'll try to always start and end something positive. So let's just let there be light. Let there be light. God.